always wonder, like, if not just me, but, somebody who's listening, hopefully you didn't have to pull somebody out of a car, but have you ever felt like something just wasn't right? Like, something major wasn't right. And I feel like as women, like, we have to go with our intuition and our gut and be able to trust that. My name is Michaelin, and I am a daughter, a best friend, an entrepreneur. I was a wife and a first lady of a church. And usually I have the camera face on other people, but today I'm turning the camera around to talk about something that has been a challenge for me over the past few months. And I really feel like I'm not alone and that I am finding my voice. So growing up, I had an issue with standing up for myself and not knowing how to. And as a result, got bullied 4th, 5th grade, even a little bit into 6th grade. And every day I would hop off of that yellow school bus and 3 to 4 girls would chase me home, beat me in the head, and I would run home and try and lock the door behind me. And at the time, my parents were working, they weren't home. And I can remember just, after school, just hiding in the school bathroom so that I would purposely miss the bus and not have to deal with that. And even when I did, finally make it home, and after, running from these girls, I can remember just standing in my room and just, being so frightened and wondering why I didn't know how to take up for myself. Like, why was I not stronger? I overcame it, actually. One day, myself and my best friend, we were on the school bus and we were going to school that morning. And I think we just both looked in each other's eyes and we were like, enough is enough, And I knew what she didn't have to say anything. She just handed me her black leather shoe, patent leather shoe. I remember it to this day, had the bow on the front. And I got off the bus and I had the shoe in my hand and I ran and I smacked the girl in the head with the shoe. And then, of course, we started fighting. And I never had another problem from her, ever, from any of them, just from that simple act of fighting back. And so it really taught me to stand up for myself and how important it is to act immediately. And it was interesting because growing up, I was always taught that if you're nice, that it'll go away, or if you ignore it, it'll go away. But it never did. And I thought if I ever had children, that I would teach them to fight back immediately and to stand strong and boldly in who you are, because you're going to have to. So today I'm talking about leaving a marriage after 4 years, where the past year and a half dealt with infidelity and dealt with manipulation. And, the implications of that were so overwhelming and so scary. I never thought that I would be that woman that would stay in a relationship where I was experiencing that. And, always in the back of my head was, marriage is hard. And, you have to try and work it out. And, you really can't tell your business to other people. All of those things that we hear, especially when, even when you're just in a relationship, let alone marriage. And so it was just the implications of leaving. I mean, we had just purchased a house together. Were so large to me at that time that I stayed. And really what I did was I put all of that external stuff before myself, and that wasn't good. So some of the details of the infidelities, and it's interesting because I can talk about it now with a straight face and, with energy because I've dealt with a lot of it and, all of the emotions that went around it. So, but, it all started with finding an inappropriate text message on his phone from a woman who he had claimed had initially reached out for prayer. And now that prayer request, which happened on social media, got somehow on his text messaging, his SMS text messaging on his phone. And so I wondered with that transition and how that happened. But those conversations were definitely flirtatious and inappropriate. And that was pretty much just the start of it. And I, of course, confronted that situation and I dealt with it and we talked about it, but there was never really any resolve to it. And, even after asking him to stop, that he said yes, but I still saw remnants of it. And I was able to sweep it under the rug because of all of those things that I thought about in my head and keep moving forward. Another example, probably the example that really made this thing real and visual, was being able to become aware of him actually going out on a date and the time and the location. And initially, I wasn't going to go to the rendezvous point. I was going to back in the corner and I was going to be that little kid and go in my room and shut the door, but I didn't. So I went to the meetup point that night. It was about 8:30 at night. I got to the parking lot right across the street from the Dairy Queen in Aspinwall, and I sat maybe, in the back and I waited. And he pulled up probably about 100 yards in front of me, so he couldn't see me. And it felt like a reality show, except one of those crazy reality shows, except I was the star of this show. And that was something and some place that I never really thought that I would be in. So I called him and he answered the phone and he said, hey babe, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. He's like, yeah, well, in my church, right now I'm talking to one of the members. Let me get out of here real quick. Let me wrap things up so I can get home. And he hung up the phone. And at that point, I can just remember tears just coming down my face. And, I wiped them away and I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do right now? And I could either stay here and wait till they come back. I can intercept or I could follow them. So I just decided to intercept. So I cut the car on and I went and pulled in front of his car, and it was like a set it off. Yeah, he looked at me like he had seen a ghost through his windshield. And I got out of the car and I went to her side, opened up the door, and I pulled her, yanked her out of the car. And she had on this little black mini skirt, and she just went off and went back and got into her car. And then I walked around the car and went to his side, and I hit him in the chest and I said, we're done. This is over. I'm so disgusted with you. And I can just remember driving home in a daze, and I got home and he followed right behind me and he told me, he said, you could have come with me. I would have invited you, but I knew that you couldn't handle it. And I thought for a moment, wow, I'm really in a messed up situation here, So I went upstairs and I remember just staring in the mirror, and my eyes were bloodshot. My head was pounding. I had a nail that was broken. And I thought to myself, Michaelin, this is not you. You are so much better than this. You've been called to so much more than this, and you don't deserve this. And it was at that point that I realized that things had to change. And so it's interesting because we ended up going to counseling maybe a week later. And we went through a few sessions, and the counselor had pulled him in the office separately. Of course, we both worked on things. And he came out of that office, and I thought I saw change in his face. Whatever that counselor said to him, he told me that he didn't want to do this anymore, that he wanted to be different. There was a part of me that believed him, that wanted to believe him. And so maybe a month later, it happened all over again. that sentiment didn't last very long. And I actually, paid attention to him over the course of a couple of weeks and found him in communication with someone from his hometown who had never mentioned to me before, who had never talked about before, who he was calling right before he got into the house and then right after he left so that I wouldn't be aware of it, talking back and forth on WhatsApp. And when I confronted him about it, he told me that I didn't have anything to worry about because she hardly spoke any English and that I shouldn't compare myself to her. That's when I knew that enough was enough. So maybe about three weeks after I had boldly asked him to leave, I found out that he was sleeping with a member of the church the whole time. Somebody who was pretty much my age, didn't know her very well, but the whole time for the past year. And it just explained a lot that I was feeling in my gut. I had already known, but it was confirmed that I had made the right decision, the right choice. I always wonder, if not just me, but somebody who's listening, hopefully you didn't have to pull somebody out of a car, but have you ever felt like something just wasn't right? Something major wasn't right. And I feel like as women, we have to go with our intuition and our gut and be able to trust that. So my breaking point really was just a combination of everything together, and I think as women, we all have our breaking points. It might not just be one event, it might take a couple of things to really push you over the edge to make you realize that you're better than this. You're worth more than this. So it was all of those events happening and me really just realizing and remembering my self-worth and my self-respect and how much more important that is than being in an unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy marriage or friendship or whatever is going on. Your self-respect is more important. Trust your gut, trust your intuition, and know that we have it for a reason. And it is so strong in us. I would want to let them know to set healthy boundaries and to set those boundaries up front versus in the end. And also that you have a choice. It was my choice to stay in an unhealthy situation. And, when you're in it, sometimes you really can't see the full dynamic of it. And so it's not to blame myself or to blame anybody else. But at the end of the day, it is your choice. It's your choice to leave. It's your choice to stay. And just to know that you, for the most part, direct your own life. And this situation, even though it was a negative situation for me, it's turned into a positive situation because it's allowed me to see myself again and it's allowed me to be strong again. And I hope that if anyone is going through any situation that's similar, that you use it for good and allow it to help other people, really. I definitely had a fear of coming forward and sharing things. I thought about what would people think about me. That's always and I never want to come off as a victim because I never was a victim and I never was broken. That's the great thing. Never was broken, but just a setback, and just it really helped me to see what was going on inside of me. I felt like this issue was too important to let go because there's a lot of similar things that are happening in our society and a lot of things that I see right in our community that related to this type of thing. So I felt like it was my duty to come forward and to say something and to let women know that they're not alone and that they can push through a situation like this or similar to this. And I know traditionally as women, it's ingrained in us to be seen and not to be heard. And so I dealt with that. And I know that is not right. And I also figured if there was a man out there who didn't like what I was saying, that he would be the one who was using his power and his title in an unjust way. I've dealt with a lot of the healing and a lot of that frustration and anger the first couple of months. And of course, I'll still be going through that process, but I've worked on it. I've read, I've prayed, I've listened to podcasts. I've spent time around good, strong women and men and, spiritual teachers and mentors. And I've realized that as a woman, I am whole. As a woman, you are whole. Like, we are so strong. And I feel like sometimes, we can dress it up. We can, put on lipstick, and we can, put on, get the newest handbag, and, everything looks good on the outside. But on the inside, a lot of us are dealing with so many deep-rooted issues and situations. And I was able to just strip all of that away and just deal with myself. And so today I'm in such a great place. I'm not special. There's nothing special about me, in a sense, compared to anyone else that's listening. We all, have, something great about us. And it would have been a shame for me to be that little girl and to run and to hide in the corner and to close my bedroom door and not speak up, not use my voice. Because as women, like, our voices, they're powerful. They matter. And I'm glad to be here and to share that with women who are listening. We are just so fearfully and just wonderfully made. And that notion is more powerful than anything that can come up against us. I don't care what it is. And God gave that to us. He made us in that way. And not to take that for granted and not to shy away from that. And I just hope that if someone is going through a similar situation, whatever it may be, that you can find your voice and that you can decide, if you decide to leave or to stay, whatever it is, that whatever that decision is, that you have power behind it, that you have intention behind what it is that you are doing, and that you put yourself and your children, you put that at the forefront. And I think that is so important. I think it's so important. And I really feel like through all of this that I'm helping somebody. If I just sweep it under the rug, then somebody else who's dealing with this, they're gonna, they could self-destruct. They could jump off of a bridge. They could handle it even, a lot differently than I could. And I've seen some of the outcry and the outpour of this type of behavior. And I feel like relationships and, marriage especially, that, one thing that I've learned, that it should feel safe and it should feel loving. And if it doesn't feel like that, then you're in the wrong space. And I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. And so I'm glad to be able to talk about that openly and talk about it publicly. And I just hope that it helps somebody. And I really feel like I'm finding my voice.